I bought my parents a $400,000 house after years of sacrifice. I thought it was love. But when I called to say I'd booked them a cruise for their anniversary, my mom laughed and said, "Sweetheart, you're not invited." That's when something inside me broke. What they didn't know was that the house wasn't entirely theirs. And this time, payback came with a real estate agent and a lawyer. I always thought family meant forever. But forever ended for me on a Tuesday morning with a single phone call. I had just turned 32, financially stable for the first time in my life. After years of working 80-hour weeks in software engineering, I'd finally built enough savings to do something special for my parents, people who, in my eyes, had sacrificed everything for me. At least, that's what I believed. When I was growing up, we weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. My dad worked as a contractor, my mom stayed home, and I was the quiet daughter who studied hard, got scholarships, and eventually moved out to a small apartment in Seattle. But even as I built my life, I always promised one thing to myself. When I make it, I'll take care of them. And I did. Last year, I surprised them with a $400,000 suburban home. It wasn't just a house. It was my childhood dream come true. I decorated it myself, paid the mortgage up front, and handed them the keys. Mom cried. Dad hugged me for the first time in years. It felt like love. It felt like home. A few months later, I even booked them a 2-week luxury cruise to Italy for their 35th anniversary wedding. The kind of trip they always talked about but never took. I called her that night, excited to hear her reaction. She answered on speaker. "Hey, Mom, I wanted to tell you." She cut me off, laughing softly. "Oh, sweetheart, about that trip? We're actually taking your brother and his wife instead. You don't mind, right?" I froze. I paid for it, Mom. It was for you and Dad." "Well, you know how your brother's been stressed lately. He deserves a break too. You can come next time." Then she laughed again. And before I could respond, she said, "Besides, you wouldn't fit in with us on a cruise. You're always so intense." That was the moment I realized I wasn't part of their family, I was their bank. When I hung up, I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the framed photo of the three of us smiling in front of that same house, the house I bought. And that's when a slow, dark thought entered my mind. Whose name was on the deed? Because yes, I had bought the house for them, but I wasn't stupid. I'd kept the title under my name. They were only residents. Technically, I was their landlord. So when my mom texted me that week saying, "We're extending the cruise to a month. Don't worry, your brother will check the mail for us," I smiled, because by then, I had already made a call to a real estate agent and a lawyer. 2 weeks later, the for sale sign went up. I didn't even bother telling them. Why should I? They hadn't told me about the cruise. The house sold in less than a week, the market was hot, and I'd priced it just right. The buyers were a quiet couple who wanted to move in fast. I explained that the previous occupants were leaving on extended travel and that I'd handle everything. By the time my parents' cruise ship docked back in the States, the house was no longer theirs. Their keys didn't even work. I still remember Mom's voice when she called, furious and confused. "Why is there a moving truck in our driveway?" "Because," I said calmly, "it's not your driveway anymore." You can't do this. We're your parents." "You're right," I said. "You were." Parents love their children. They don't use them. She started crying, shouting something about betrayal. I just said, "Now you know how it feels to be uninvited from your own home." And I hung up. They tried to fight it legally, but since the title was in my name, they had no case. I gave them 2 weeks to move their things out, which my brother helped them with, because apparently I had gone crazy. I didn't go crazy. I went free. They moved into a small rental apartment afterward. My brother blocked me on social media. Mom sent me one last email full of guilt and anger, saying she'd never forgive me for humiliating the family. I didn't reply, because that's what peace looks like sometimes. Silence. It's been almost a year now. The couple who bought the house recently sent me a photo. The garden I planted still blooms every spring. I don't regret it. Sometimes revenge isn't fire and fury. Sometimes it's control. Because love without respect isn't love. It's a leash. And I finally cut mine. People say revenge changes you. They're right. It turns pain into clarity and silence into peace. I didn't just sell the house. I sold the illusion that I ever owed them anything.